Michael Kroger, former Victorian Liberal President, Steve Conroy, former Labor Senator and Cabinet Minister. Steve, I wonder whether Labor's been overreacting to the Muslim vote generally, getting too anti-Israel, when you actually see that Labor holds almost every single seat that has a sizable Muslim minority, almost every single one, and the Liberals are more pro-Israel anyway. I mean, the only way the Muslim vote could hurt them then is by swinging some seats to the Greens instead. But the Greens will still back a Labor government over a Liberal one.
Well, look, I think your maths is fundamentally right there, and I think those last clips that you were showing demonstrate a fundamental ignorance when people try and link the Indigenous issues here in Australia with, Palestine. But Palestine is not about colonialism. That is an absolute denial of history. And anyone who does any significant amount of reading will understand that both the Palestinians and the Israelis have a claim over the lands. And that's why only a two-state solution can solve this. Not from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. This is a call which needs to be called out. And Anthony Albanese and Penny Wong and Richard Marles have regularly called it out at all stages. They've not supported the Hamas attacks. They've condemned the Hamas attacks. But my message is to the media is it's all well and good for Muslim votes matter to want to say, here's the 8 issues that we want to talk about. Well, I got about 8 more that they're going to have to talk about. And I expect the media to hold their candidates to whether or not they supported and will condemn the Hamas raid, whether or not they support the establishment of a state of Israel or they want it exterminated. They're going to have to answer these questions. What's their view on female circumcision? What's their view on gay rights? What's their view on all of those LGBTQI issues? Because they are going to be hiding their views on these issues, and the Australian public won't be hoodwinked by candidates who want to behave like that. So the media have a very important role, whether it's the ABC, The Guardian or News Limited. All of these media need to be holding these candidates to account for their actual views. Don't sit here and go, we aren't going to judge people on these 8. We're going to judge your candidates on your 8.
A very, very good point. Michael, Steve is completely right. People calling Israel a colonial nation in total ignorance. I mean, Jews have lived in Israel, the heart of Israel, for 4,000 years at least, and that is more than 2,000 years longer than Islam has existed on the face of the earth. Now, what do you make of the Muslim votes matter? Has Labor been overreacting to Muslim pressure?
I don't think they've been overreacting. I don't think in politics you can ever be complacent, particularly in relation to something like this. But apart from the excellent point Stephen's made, by the way, let's see their views on gay marriage, for example. That'd be very interesting to hear views from Muslim Votes Matter on these, LGBTI issues. The thing is this, Palestinians in the Middle East aren't the leadership isn't universally popular amongst Muslims. I mean, don't forget the Egyptians don't want any Palestinians from Gaza in Egypt, nor do the Jordanians. The Lebanese don't want any more, nor do the Syrians, nor the Iranians, nor the Iraqis, the Saudis, Qatar, not even the Yemenis, Bahrain, Kuwait, etc. So you're going to find that amongst Muslim Vote Matters Muslims, there are plenty of Muslims that aren't going to vote for this ticket, this team, whose main sympathy appears to be with the Palestinian leadership in Gaza and the West Bank, either Hamas or Fatah, neither of whom are very popular amongst those other countries I just mentioned. So I don't think my gut feel is they're not going to threaten any Labor seat. They're going to harm Labor. But for the reasons Stephen and I have just explained, I don't think they'll win any seats from the Labor Party, Andrew.
No, I think the harm they will do, though, is if they take some Labor seats and give them to the Greens with their preferences or with their vote, that will reduce Labor to a minority government reliant on Greens support. And in the long term, that could be really deadly to Labor. The Albanese government, though, Stephen, I have to say, sounds like it's starting to panic. You got Treasurer Jim Chalmers, who usually, he exudes confidence, is now attacking the Reserve Bank, blaming it for a flat economy. Here he is.
The combination of global economic uncertainty and higher interest rates is smashing household budgets and slowing our economy considerably.
I mean, Jim Chalmers is obviously preemptively blaming the Reserve Bank for the growth figures that are going to come out on Wednesday, are expected to be weak. But gee, he's got a habit of blaming everyone but himself.
No, I think it's good to see Jim has decided that he's going to call out the Reserve Bank's behaviour. He's stating an economic fact. The Reserve Bank, its statement is we're going to keep interest rates higher to keep flattening the economy. Despite the fact we're already in what's called a per capita recession, thanks to them. You've got the new clown from the UK who wants to lecture us about, you've got to be polite to a Reserve Bank. How dare you question its judgment? I mean, this bloke's out there giving speeches on Friday saying, no, there's no evidence. There's no evidence that the economy is flattening and we can afford to lower interest rates yet, not for the foreseeable future. I mean, this guy just needs to look at what the Reserve Bank in Australia has done to this country's GDP in the next few days. This bloke is proud of the fact he put the UK into recession when he was over there in charge of these issues. He put them into recession for 2 years. Well, we're not going to let you do it here without calling you out for it. So I'm glad Jim has actually pointed at them and said, guys, interest rates are a blunt instrument. You're hitting those who can least afford it. Those who are actually causing any inflationary pressures in this country, going to restaurants all the time, they're not affected by these interest rate increases. So how about you just pull your heads in?
Look, I've heard you say all that before, but Michael Kroger, the problem is that inflation also robs the poor. It really robs the poor. It makes people with real estate assets like all of us at the table better off, I guess, but the poor, no. And I have to say, too, that the Prime Minister today, just played the spectator. Oh, no, this was an attack on the Reserve Bank. It's just a statement of fact. Here he is.
The Treasurer's comments were absolutely nothing new. He has made the comment about the economy slowing for a long period of time, and economists are expecting, when the figures are released this week, that they will show a modest growth. That is just a fact.
Michael, the Reserve Bank's mandate is to fight inflation. Inflation's made worse by government spending. Why is the Prime Minister and the Treasurer both really blaming the Reserve Bank for their own failures?
Well, because these two are desperate. I mean, the polls are declining and are continuing to decline. There's been no uptick in Labor support now for months. It's a gradual decline. They're getting canned over there, as you know, dramatically increased public spending, which is going to 26.6% of GDP next year, in the next fiscal year. It's partly the reason there's inflation in this country. They're desperate. They desperately need rates to come down. And you've got Stephen and a whole lot of these Labor figures, and now the Treasurer out there publicly bagging the Reserve Bank. They are desperate to get a rate cut. They're desperate to stop rates being increased, and they're desperate to get a rate cut before they call an election. I'd like to know, Andrew, whether any senior Labor politician or senior Labor figure has contacted any members of the Reserve Bank board. Be interesting to see whether, we hear Jim out there in the public domain. I wonder if any Reserve Bank board member has been contacted by anyone. I don't know. I'm just asking the question. The Reserve Bank board is an interesting group of people. And I wonder if anyone's contacted them directly to talk about their views on interest rates.
Right. I don't know if that's a hint or whatever. We shall see. I've no doubt something will come out. Michael Kroger, Steve Conroy, thank you very much.
I've got to go. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you both.
This is the recession the Reserve Bank think we have to have. I mean, this is the recession they think we have to have.
Yeah, very good.
Well, hello. You're quoting a former Labor Prime Minister who might, then Treasurer at the time,